my assistant of the day.
Mosey again. He's been really assisting us on these.
Been like super assistant.
Welcome back to the trail with Bunchy, the cowboy cook. I'm sorry I've gotten off schedule, not putting out the videos like I should, but I'm about to get things caught up, and hopefully here out we'll try and work harder to stay on schedule. Now this video is from, was filmed a couple weeks ago when we were at Terra Creek Farm with Double Creek Cattle Company doing the Southern Rodeo Association down in Faison, North Carolina. We cooked for Double Creek and Terra Creek staff. Had a great time. It rained Saturday night. Some delayed the rodeo just a little bit, but as you saw in the videos that I have put out in this one too, where we were actually in a turkey barn, so we didn't get wet at all. They let us put the fire inside because it wasn't going to do burn up anything. But anyhow, we had a great time. And today in this video I've got 2 recipes from MulE, Pazole and Sopaipilla. I think that's how you, Sopaipilla, or Pilla. I know I'm butchering it, but it's a Mexican fry bread is what that is, and then the Pazole is hominy with chili sauce. Both of them were very good. So let's get into the video with MulE. All right, I've got MulE here, one of our newest cooks who started coming out with us, and he's got a recipe he wants to share with us. We're prepping it now to let it rise, and we're going to be cooking it tonight to go with our dinner. And so far it sounds like it's a very versatile. You can kind of make it savory, put some savory toppings or sweet toppings with it. So with that, I'll turn it right over to MulE.
All right, thank you, Gene. I'm going to go ahead and make something called
mushy.
Mushy, sorry,
Yeah,
Paul.
that's
Apologize for that. Thank you, Mushy. I'm going to make something that I grew up with. It's called Sopaipillas. It's basically just like a fry bread that you make up and cut real thin and then boil in some grease. And then all we do is puff it up and then let it dry out, and everything works good. It's a real simple recipe to make. Works out really well. And
I'll put the recipe down in the description,
okay,
for everybody.
So what we're going to start with is I'm going to double the regular recipe. So I'm starting here with 10 cups of Southern biscuit self-rising flour that we're going to cut here. And then I did forget to get over here and reach over here and grab a hold of my butter here in just a minute to throw in there. And then I'm also going to, calls for 2 tablespoons, but I do make this a little much on the yeast side to make it actually rise a little bit better.
Mosey's hand is handing it to you. We like to work as a team when we can. So on the yeast, I'll go a little bit heavy, and I'll throw in about 6 tablespoons of the Fleischmann's Active Yeast. I don't like using the quick rising because I think sometimes it'll actually go a little it'll flash out faster than what I want it to. So, and then what I do is I use a full stick of butter. Just like when you're making biscuits, you cut in a little bit of fattening substance to make it puff a little bit better. And then with all of that, I need to go ahead, and I forgot to get me a fork, so I'm going to get me a fork so that I can go ahead and break this butter up a little bit. Go get a metal.
Since we did soften it from the campfire.
Tub on the right.
And we'll break that up nice and easy.
We got you a metal.
You getting me a metal one?
Coming, yeah.
There's always something that you forget, see? And this is why we don't use plastic to cook with.
Well, and life on the trail isn't always perfect, and
Thank you.
here comes
Again,
Mosey.
Mosey.
He's our helper today, but he's not mic'd up, so he's very quiet.
So basically all I do is I take and I cut that butter in and keep mixing up my dough or my flour and my yeast, and that just keep adding that butter in and just keep things moving. And then what we'll do is we'll add about 4.5 cups of warm water, a little over 100, 105, just to activate that yeast, and then mix everything up into a nice dough. And then we will go ahead and knead that out and make a nice puffy dough. And then I'll put it back into this pan, but I'll grease this pan with oil prior to doing that.
That way it can rise up.
It'll rise up and it won't stick to the pan, and everything can do what it needs to do. And then while we're doing that, we can go ahead and prep the Pazole, which is what we're going to be cooking for lunch today. And then put this in there with it, and we'll show you guys how to, cook these up on the fryer, and then how to actually eat them, because these are definitely a favorite in my household. My wife, my daughter, and my mother-in-law seem to think these are the best things on the planet.
Well, and I've already shared some recipes that, like, my mother has made for 50 years or more, and I sometimes will doctor them up a little bit. In fact, a couple of things I put, like extra bananas or flavoring, and she'll say this is better than her recipe, and I said, Mother, just admit I'm a better cook than you. She just turned 85, so I can say that to her.
Yeah, this is a recipe that I got from my mom, and I know she got from my grandma. That when my grandma got married, she married my grandfather, who was an immigrant from Mexico and got his citizenship flying aircraft for the Army.
And I heard you saying you can kind of go sweet or savory.
Yeah.
As far as toppings and or fillings.
A lot of people
nice.
will put honey on this once they get all cooked up. A lot of times I'll just tear the top off of it and I'll just load it up with a bunch of beans, which is usually what I make with this, is I'll just make some good old beans and then fill it up with the beans on the inside and then just bite into them. So there's a multitude of ways you can take this, which is why I think I like it so much.
Yeah, I love versatile recipes.
All right, with that said, I'm gonna reach over here and I'm gonna get me some water. And we're gonna start adding water till I get it to where it's that doughy substance that I like. And like I said, this works out really good for cooking over campfires and stuff because it just uses oil. And it's real easy for people to utilize. We'll get started there and I'll see what we end up with. And all I do is just keep folding it and turning it till I get it where I want it.
No stand mixer needed or hand mixer.
It's all hand mixed.
It's hand mixed, not mixer. Even though you are using your hand as a mixer or hand folded. He's just folding it. And one thing, well, here in the South, and I know there is supposed to be some rain coming in today. That can affect it. Humidity in the air, it can affect, like that becomes actually too wet. Add a little flour to it to dry it out, or if it's too dry, because it is a little windy, so it could dry it out a little quick.
I can't remember who told me. It might have been a mushy that told me you always hold back that last quarter cup.
That's what I have learned. Because, well, if you add water and
and it's too wet, then you add more flour, and you add too much flour, then you add more water. Before you know it, you've doubled your recipe like you're trying to start with now, but you actually, in the long run, a little bit at a time, doubling your recipe because you keep going back and forth.
Ooh, I probably should put on some rubber gloves, but it'd be all right.
Our hands are clean.
Yeah, but trust me, I wash my hands all the time because I don't like when people put funky things in my meal either.
Well, and like at the shows, I tell everybody we can't pass a health inspection just because of our equipment. And like on a fire, we can't hold a definite exact degree, but we use hot water to clean and stuff like that. Soap. We, the table on the chuck wagon, we're always using hot water to rinse it and scrub it down, keep it clean. So I've always felt comfortable with our cleanliness, and people that eat with us always feel very comfortable with how we keep things clean.
And as you can see, like I said, it's just a dough, and just keep pushing and get it worked in. And I probably could have used like a teaspoon more of water, but we'll get it there. Just takes a little bit of process. And then, like I said, we'll let it rise for a couple hours.
He can sprinkle some in. Thanks.
And you can add a little bit more sugar to this if you needed to, and that'll actually.
Yeah, especially if you want it as a sweet bread.
Yep.
If you're using it as it's sweet, you can get a little sweeter to start with.
And then you can just add cinnamon and sugar to it. And
yeah.
There you go.
Kind of a flatbread cinnamon roll. They make you, for our buddy Cinnamon Roll here at the Terra Creek Rodeo this weekend. We have a buddy, his name is, his trail name is Cinnamon Roll. And that was because last year at Benson Mule Days, he requested cinnamon rolls. So we've been trying to meet his needs. And then all of a sudden this weekend, he wants a chocolate pie.
And we're going to have to figure that one out. And like I said, you saw me punch a little hole in the middle of that just to
put the
get
water
that water on the inside of it, and then start working that water towards the outside by folding and folding and folding. And then what I'll do is, like I said, I'll get it.
And you're really not kneading it per se. You're folding it more than kneading it.
And that's all I do is I just keep folding it until I get it to where I want it. And then, like I said, we'll go ahead and I'll make it into a ball. And then I'll pull it out of the pan, oil the pan up, and then let it sit, let it rise. And I'll punch it down a couple of times throughout that process. And then after that, roll it out flat, cut it into little strips, and we'll show you guys that whole process once I get it rose.
What kind of minimum rise time would you need?
I usually try to use about 2 hours. Unless I'm kind of in a hurry, then I'll use, I'll try to put it in some heat, like warm up an oven.
A little more of a...
To a warm.
Yeah, a warm oven that's been turned on and turned off.
You know, and I do find during the winter, I got to do that a little bit more because it's a little dry in the house.
Yeah.
And it can be a little cool.
And a little cooler.
Yeah, so during the winter, it's a little bit more difficult.
Well, and out here too, but you could always heat up a Dutch oven that your pan will fit in, or and then stick your pan down in the Dutch oven.
With that all said and done, I'll pull this off. I'm gonna wipe this out, and then I'll go ahead and oil this up, and then we'll cover her up with a towel on top, and we will let her sit for a little bit.
All right, we'll come back whenever we. It's self-explanatory on what we're going to do now, but we'll come back after we've let it rise some and continue the process. Whenever you're ready.
All right, so like I said, what we do is we take our dough, we make a little ball of it, and then just take a rolling pin. And what you're trying to do is get the dough nice and thin so that when we actually drop it into the oil, it will puff up nice and fat and be all kinds of yummy. So I try to get it, like I said, pretty paper thin. Not quite the see-through, but I do try to get it as thin as I can within reason. So,
All right, so now take it over to the fryer.
now what we do is take this, take our little thing over to the fryer.
Okay, hang on. Okay.
Then what we do is we go ahead and we get our oil up to temp, and then we just drop our little piece in there, and of course we're gonna have my assistant of the day.
Mosey again, he's been
Mosey.
really assisting us on these.
Been like super assistant, and then all
Yeah.
you're doing is you're waiting for the dough to actually puff the first time on one side, and you'll start seeing it bubble here.
Yeah, you can see some bubbles with the camera.
Yep.
And of course we see Mosey's hand again. We might, is he really a person or just hand like from the Addams family?
He's just a hand model. Go ahead and flip it for me, please, sir. I believe that we're right there. And then you'll get that golden brown on one side, flip it over, and then get a golden brown on the other side.
So just a minute or minute and a half on each side.
And you're all good to go.
All right, we'll taste this up in just a minute. All right.
So there's a lot of ways you can actually serve this up. One is you just put honey on it, which a lot of people will just do, some good old honey.
And that's where like putting optional sugar in the recipe
Yep.
at the beginning if you're wanting it sweeter.
And that will make just absolutely awesome with honey on it. Or you did, usually if these will puff off enough, you can make them with your soup or your beans or whatever you're going to eat them with, and it works out
So a
really
little
well.
fry bread with that,
Yep, it's just
chili, things
Mexican
like that.
fry bread.
Yeah. All right, well, that looks good. Looks easy enough to do also. Give it a try. All right, I was wrong on the last recipe. We're actually doing that for lunch. And then to go with lunch is this next recipe that MulE is going to do. And with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Okay. So what we're going to do for lunch today is we're going to do a recipe called Pazole. It's basically hominy, enchilada sauce, and some green chilies, and then we cook it over the fire nice and slow. Get it nice and warm. So what I've done is I usually do 1 full can of hominy. I do 2 cans of the enchilada sauce, and then I would do a half a can this size of the green chilies. I always use green chilies because I just find that people in the South don't seem to like spicy food as much as others. So we try to dial it back just a little bit.
Well, and then also, when you're cooking for a crowd you don't know,
It is
you're
very
better off to go mild and maybe offer some heat if they want it.
Yep, absolutely. So that's one of my lessons I have learned the hard way
Right.
because I like to cook hot.
And if you know you're the ones eating, you can go hot if that's what they want. But if you don't know, your best, same as on salt and seasoning, go a little bit less.
All the time, like I said. But so what we've done is I've already added a can of hominy. I've added 3 cans of the enchilada sauce, and I haven't added any of the green chilies yet because that's just one big can. And it's real, like I said, real simple to make, real easy. Now I know we're not supposed to cook tomato sauce and use tomatoes and cast iron, but I'm gonna break a little rule today.
Well, I don't know if that's a strict rule, but the tomato sauce will break down your seasoning. But in my opinion, and I think other people, that if you cook it and once you get done, don't sit around, don't let it sit there for hours. Go ahead and empty it out and clean it and put some oil back in to re-season it. And typically you should be good, but after you've cooked it, it's that the tomato sauce is slowly eating away on your seasoning. But I've never had a problem to do it and then clean it as soon as the meal is over.
So, All right, with all that being said, so I'm gonna go ahead and add this other can of hominy to it, since we're feeding a large crew down here today.
And did you drain that?
I did drain off the juices from this. And I'll set that over here to the side. I'll go ahead and add this other can of enchilada sauce. And then of course we're gonna add the last can of green chilies. And then we'll stir that all up for right this second, just to kind of get things moving around. And then what I'll do is I will cut up this garlic sauce, or garlic clove. I did pull a whole clove of garlic to accomplish this today. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to chop that up real fast. And garlic goes pretty quick. It don't take a whole lot of special cooking to.
And you can always smash it or put it through a press or whatever you want to do.
I didn't even think about the smashing piece. Guys, you're always basically trying to do is just get the inside the seasonings released, which is what I found with that. So I mean, smashing it absolutely works.
Yeah, pressing either one, it just releases the flavors.
And just because I'm afraid somebody might get a little big chunk of that.
A big chunk, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and some people will smash it and then go back and cut it up a little bit.
Yep.
I guess we could always use our 3-pound mallet as something else and just smash away.
That might entail a little too much fun.
Right.
We worked 57 heads Wednesday, and won't but 11 of them. Damn, I wish we could do it. You probably.
And then we're going to go ahead and add that in. Stir that back up again. And then of course we're going to put that on the campfire, and we'll go ahead and cook that up till it comes up to a boil. Reduce it down just a little bit, and ready to serve. It's that simple.
No, doesn't need to simmer 20 minutes, or once you boil it one time and
bring it up to a boil.
Bring it back to
sit
simmer.
down. Just let it reduce down just a little bit. Serve it up, and you're done.
Right, that definitely is a simple recipe. Yeah.
That's all I do is simple.
Open and pour, yeah, well, and on this channel, because I'm trying to encourage people to cook outside, definitely start out with simple recipes. You can always do other things, but even if you've been cooking outdoors a long time, nothing wrong with a simple recipe. Especially since we're cooking for a bunch of cowboys and over a fire, sometimes a simple recipe helps us out in our time management.
Yes, it does.
All right, well, we'll be back with that also whenever we get it cooked up. All right, we're back with MulE, and we're going to check out this dish, the first dish we started working on. Now, we did add something on as we were cooking it. What was that?
That would be some ham, slices that we chopped up, threw some ham into it. Basically, Pazole is just a poor man's stew.
So basically we just use trimmings.
Yeah, which is ham trimmings,
the cheapest cut, but still it's a country ham.
And it works out good. So, and I mean, like I said, just to give you an idea of what we're looking like.
Nice.
And then you just bring it to a boil and go ahead and serve while it's hot. And there you have it. Pazole, Sopaipillas.
And then so put hotter chilies if you want it hotter, or put some hot sauce in it.
And only chilies and all those other things to it, so.
That looks like a good lunch coming up. All right, let's eat and give it a try. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that video on the Sopaipilla and Pazole. Excuse the pronunciation of it, but it did eat well. In fact, he had some honey. I put that on it, That right there would be good with breakfast. Put a little butter on it and some honey, and then with some eggs and bacon or country ham, some grits or rice. Got a good breakfast get going. But give that a try, as well as the Pazole. That came out really well. I enjoyed both. Like I've said before, can't always film me eating it, because sometimes as soon as something gets done, either I'm doing something else, especially on these catering jobs, or we're immediately serving. So, but I'll do the best I can to at least try it in front of the camera and give you a little couple of thoughts of my own about the dish itself. But we had also had that Pazole several weeks back at another show we did down in Sanford at the Lee County Fairgrounds. I enjoyed it. In fact, this past weekend we took some of that hominy and fried it with some green hatch chilies, and then some seasoning. That turned out really good too. I'm sure we'll probably cook that one again, and I'll try and film that. One thing we are trying to do, especially in the catering end of what we are doing on the wagons, is coming up with recipes of especially one-pot dishes that can be the entree. A little easier to handle, especially when you're cooking for a lot of people and you want it hot for when it's time to eat. And we want, you know, a good meal too, but we're trying out some new dishes, and that keeps us on our toes too. That being said, if you like videos like this, please subscribe, share it with friends, like it. Remember my Amazon link down in the bottom in the description. And as always, ring the bell, and Mushy the Cowboy Cook will see you down the trail.